What's up there, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to be going over my team that I brought to the Hartford Regionals this past weekend, and I'm not afraid to say that I had honestly played out of my freaking mind in this tournament, and unfortunately I wasn't rewarded for it because I did go 5-3, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why the hell are you making a team report? You made another team report, and you've gone 5-3 in that tournament in 2016. Why are you going to make another one, Jim? Well, I like doing these, and I need to put content out on my channel, and maybe another person can use this team, and then we can kind of build on the ideas of the infrastructure of this team in general, because I think this team performed phenomenally, and I had a lot of great answers for the standard meta call on this team, and we're going to get right into this. So, how did I do? Like I just said, I went 5-3. You can see that there on the right-hand corner of your screen. I finished 42nd overall. Out of 222 Masters, there was 8 rounds of Swiss. There was a top 8. I believe we needed 5 more players to actually make it a top 16. And if that would have been the case, I would have won my last round. I would have been in the top 16, which would be top cut at that point. But the top 16, since there was, I think, 237 that actually had registered, but only 222 that had showed up, there was still top 16 cash prizes. So if you placed, I believe, anywhere between 9th place to 16th place, you got at least $250. And at the end there, in my last round, that's kind of what I was shooting for, which would have paid for my trip, and that would have been awesome, rewarding. Excuse me, and I would have gotten 10 more points, which I'll take as many points as I possibly can get at this point. And there was a CP give out of 50, I believe, from 33 to 64, and it was 9 to 32, which was 50, and then, you know, it got higher and higher when you got into top cut. But I did go 5-3. I like I said, I played out of my mind, and I'm going to go over some of the games that I had played against some of the really good players, and I even have 2 clips of the games that I had played against 2 really good players. So let's get into the team building process. So I kind of wanted a bulky team. I wanted the setup team. I really liked Sam Pendelis' team that he brought to the 2017 World Championships. And that team basically consisted of Aurora Veil, Ninetales, and all the other Pokemon that could just set up. And he did have Taboo Lele on his team with Calm Mind, and I believe it had a Wiki Berry. Mine did as well. And I really liked the infrastructure of this team because it can take a hit, it can set up, barring that the fact that I didn't have a Ninetales on my team, but my team was still bulky enough to take a lot of hits in order to set up, at least once. I had Swords Dance Garchomp, Calm Mind Tapu Fini, and I had Snorlax with Belly Drum. Anyway, I had a bulky team. My favorite Tapu is Taboo Lele, so that's what I brought to this team. It's almost impossible not to have a Tapu on your team, although there were successful teams without Tapus on it. I believe one in general was Alex Underhill, who had recently won the Fort Wayne Regionals down in Florida. I wanted a form of speed control. There's a lot of hard Trick Room teams. There's a lot of teams of Tailwind. I wanted to make sure that I had at least one form of speed control on my team, and I had 2. One is more direct than the other. Mandibuzz, benefiting from the Psychic Seeds and the Psychic Terrain. I was like, okay, that's great. I can have Mandibuzz on the team, on the field with Taboo Lele. I can get up a Tailwind. I also have an answer for Marowak, which can Shadow Bone the Taboo Lele, because I could just foul play that. And also, Mandibuzz is a really good check to Snorlax, because Snorlax and Mimikyu like to lead against a lot of teams as well. They set up the Trick Room, and they Belly Drum with the Snorlax, where they protect with the Snorlax, and then they Trick Room. Whatever they do, you can basically counter that. I taunt on my Mandibuzz, I can taunt the Mimikyu, and the following turn after they had set up a Belly Drum, I can foul play the Snorlax, especially if it didn't have Protect. So I felt like that was a really good answer, and it actually worked out for me in one game. I needed another form of speed control when I didn't bring Mandibuzz to a game, and that was Arcanine. So basically, when I didn't bring Mandibuzz, I brought Arcanine, especially if there's a lot of physical attackers on the opposing team. So I did bring the Arcanine with Bulldoze. And my Trick Room check, if the other team did get Trick Room up, I did bring the Snorlax. So my team building here, I did basically the night before, and I was trying to get some ideas, and I had posted my team, and I texted my team to my friends, and I'm like, hey guys, can you take a look at this? What can I do? And there's a few people that I can thank for that. It's Andrew Davis, Bernard Haran, and Jack the Battler. So thank you guys, and it's my team right there. I'm starting out the tournament right there, just taking a picture of my team, which is the Mandibuzz, the Taboo Lele, the Arcanine Celesteela, the Garchomp, which is a freaking beast in this format, and is the MVP of this team, and the Snorlax. Alright, so the team that I had brought, of course I just stated, but Mandibuzz, we're going to go over each individual aspects of these Pokemon. I'm not going to go over the IVs and the EV spreads because I kind of want to keep that confidential at the moment, because there's a couple of things that I need to tweak. There's a couple of things that actually were a little off on the tournament, mainly speeds. So there's a couple of things that I want to tweak, and I might be using this team in the future. So I'm not too keen on giving out my EV spreads just yet, but maybe in the future. So anyway, the Mandibuzz with the Psychic Seas, it's pretty standard. Overcoat, the Overcoat gave me a really good answer to Torkoal Lilligant, because turn 1, you know, if they do an After You Eruption, my Mandibuzz takes not even 50% from the eruption when activating the Psychic Seeds. If the Lilligant were to ever spore into my Mandibuzz, which no good player really ever should do, because Mandibuzz usually has Overcoat for that reason, I can't be spored. So then I could just turn 1, taunt the Lilligant, so it can't After You, and it can't use Sleep Powder on my Taboo Lele, and then the next turn I could just Tailwind and then Psychic the Torkoal slot. It's a calm nature, so it can take a lot of special hits. It can take Life Orb Thunderbolts. I believe it can actually take a Electrium Z based off of Thunder from a Tapu Koko that is outside of the electric terrain, which is absolutely nuts. So I could set up the Tailwind, and my Tapu Lele is able to outspeed Tapu Koko by 1 point, and my Mandibuzz does outspeed my Tapu Lele by 1 point, because I originally had Fake Tears on my Mandibuzz, so that I could Fake Tears a Pokemon, and then I could maybe Psychic or Moonblast a Pokemon with my Tapu Lele without even having to set up. But I opted not for that move because there was no room for it. I needed Tailwind, I needed Form Speed Control, I needed Snarl, because again, I needed something to prevent other Pokemon to hit my Pokemon, especially while setting up. Foul Play again for the Snorlax, strong physical attackers, the Marowak, and Taunt to stop Trick Room, the Sleep Powders, and what have you. Mandibuzz was a very, very good call for this tournament. I think there's a lot of players that were prepared for it, because there was a lot of Mimikyus that he had played with Farium Z, which could OHKO it, so that's something that I could probably work on in the future to possibly survive, but that will take away from the special bulk, so I don't know about that. Tapu Lele is the next Pokemon with the Wiki Berry, which heals back 50% of your health. Once you get down to, it'll be at least 25% of your health. Psychic Surge, the only ability it gets, Modest Nature, and I will reveal that not the EVs, but the IVs. The IVs, I don't know the exact number, but this Tapu Lele actually underspeeds regular speed with no investment Tapu Fini, so that I can get my Psychic Surge, and it actually worked against Joshua Lorsi, who had played in the second round. He had led Tapu Fini, and I led Tapu Lele, and I was able to get up my Psychic Terrain. And I did that again if there was another Pokemon that wanted to lead, possibly, you know, a little speedier Tapu Bulu or a Tapu Fini. I would be able to lead with my Tapu Lele, get up the Psychic Terrain, and then I can't be faked out. I could just get up the Tailwind. Actually, no, because Mandibuzz is flying, so you can fake out into the Mandibuzz. At least you can't fake out into the Tapu Lele. Anyway, I digress. Protect, Psychic, Moonblast, Calm Mind on this Tapu Lele. It's pretty standard for a setup, but it did a lot of work in this tournament. Getting one Calm Mind up was absolutely insane. The amount of damage this thing put out. I could OHKO Garchomps, Aerodactyls. I mean, not that that really makes a big deal. He's like, oh, you can OHKO an Aerodactyl. You probably do that without a Calm Mind, but in the PC that I had actually played the day after, it really did come into play. I had actually set up 3 combines against Joshua Lorcy in the first game, in which I didn't win, spoilers, because I was getting a little unfortunate luck, but the amount of damage that his Tapu Fini, Tapu Fini, I snarled it about 3 or 4 times, and I combined 3 times with my Taboo Lele, and I think it's his Muddy Waters were doing maybe like 10 to like 9 HP damage, which was absolutely insane. So the Snarl really did help out a lot with my Mandibuzz. Garchomp is the next Pokemon, Ground EMZ. This is a pretty standard set. This is a slow, bulky as hell Garchomp. Not as slow as you may think. I did put a lot of speed investment in it. I think maybe 100 or more speed EVs, just so that I can outspeed Tapu Kokos after a Bulldoze. So there was a couple of occasions where I had actually led Arcanine and Garchomp. I would protect the Garchomp. My Arcanine is ridiculously bulky. It could take pretty much any hit thrown at it, sometimes even double ups. I had survived a Draco Meteor and a Life Orb Thunderbolt from a Salamence and a Tapu Koko with my Arcanine, and then I bulldozed the Koko, and then I'm able to outspeed with the Garchomp, and then I can either go for a Poison Jab or an Earthquake. And Poison Jab was the right call in this tournament, and I actually played a lot of Garchomps that had Poison Jab and not Rock Slide. Because if there was a case that actually had come into play in this tournament, if a Pokemon had Wide Guard in which Polchua Celesteela had Wide Guard, I can then Poison Jab one of the Tapus. It was great for Tapu Bulu, in which never came to any of the games that I had played against it, but Poison Jab put in a lot of work into this tournament, and it is very, very strong. It can pretty much OHKO any of the Tapus, barring the Tapu Fini, but I had gotten up a Swords Dance in the one game, but my Poison Jab missed it because of a Muddy Water accuracy drop. But this Garchomp was brought to 100% of the games that I played. Every single game I played, I had brought Garchomp, because it is such a good answer to the Tapus. I'm sorry, not the Finis. The Tapus, there's a lot of Tapu Finis, but the Tapus. Arcanine is the next one. Like I just said, this one is incredibly bulky. It is a careful nature. Intimidate, of course, to support my other Pokemon trying to set up so I can intimidate those physical type attackers. The Iapapa Berry came into play almost every single time that I brought this Arcanine to the match. This one, like I had said previously, it is incredibly bulky. There was a case where in Electric Terrain, turn 1, Polchua had Electrium Z'd my Arcanine. Now, mind you, this Electrium Z is based off of Thunder and not Thunderbolt in Electric Terrain, and my Arcanine survived with 7 HP, and it procced my Iapapa Berry. Now, that is absolutely insane. This Arcanine is very, very strong, and if you want to see that game, or at least the first half of that game 3, I'm going to put a link in the description. It's not on my channel, it's on the listed video, but you can watch that, and I have a kind of a description as to what went on later in the match, because it did come down to a tiebreaker at the end. Protect, Flare Blitz, Will-O-Wisp, and Bulldoze. There was never a time where I felt that I needed extreme speed on this Arcanine. There was never a situation in this tournament, for as many games that I played, where I was like, man, I wish I had extreme speed on this Arcanine, or I would have won this game if I had extreme speed on this Arcanine. Never did that happen. There was a time where I had actually predicted a Tapu Koko switch out on the Garchomp, and I Will-O-Wisp the incoming Garchomp. Will-O-Wisp actually was a great call over the extreme speed on this Arcanine. Bulldoze helped out immensely, because I could Bulldoze a Tapu Koko, like I said, and outsped it with my Garchomp. I unfortunately can't outspeed the max speed timid Tapu Kokos with a Bulldoze with my Arcanine, or after a Bulldoze with my Arcanine. So that's something I'll probably EV for in the future if I am using this very bulky Arcanine, which I probably will, because it put a lot of work into this tournament. That's besides the point. This one is very, very good. Bulldoze did help out immensely. Celesteela with leftovers, again, very, very standard set. Careful Nature, this one is incredibly bulky as well. It can take a lot of hits, multiple hits from non-life orb Tapu Koko. Leech Seed Flamethrower came into play a lot of matches, especially for the Celesteela Mirrors and for the Metagrosses. And Heavy Slam, again, to hit the Tapus and to potentially get those Beast Boosts. So this Celesteela was very, very clutch and single-handedly 2v1'd an opposing Arcanine and Celesteela and won me a game in overtime versus Polchua. Celesteela is the best, and it depends on what team you're running, but the best Ultra Beast. It's so ridiculous. And Snorlax with the Figgy Berry. Careful Nature, very, very bulky. Not much attack investment whatsoever. All HP and defenses. Facade, Protect, Belly Drum, and Recycle. Now, if there was one thing that I had changed on this Snorlax, it's definitely to take off Protect to put high horsepower. Because I couldn't hit Mimikyus, and I played a lot of Mimikyus. And sometimes it was just sitting on the field with a Belly Drum and not really doing much. I did put Facade on my Snorlax so I could potentially Will-O-Wisp it with my Arcanine and take a Will-O-Wisp from an opposing Pokemon and then benefit from that. But this Snorlax was only brought to, I think, like 5% to even 10% of the matches. I barely brought it. I didn't feel like it really helped me out much. The only time that I actually had brought it was just to absorb hits, because I could barely find myself in a situation where I can actually get a Belly Drum up and benefit from it. So it was pretty much there just to take hits. It did take a lot of hits for me against Polchua in the Game 3 in which I did one. So, you know, I have that to thank for it, but I really didn't bring it much, and I don't think it fits too well on this team. Excuse me. It was more so for the Trick Room counter, you know, if the Pokemon that I was playing wanted to set up Trick Room, I could just switch into my Snorlax and benefit from it. Alright, so we're going to get into my opponents. So as you see here, I basically have all of my opponents, the rounds that I played them in, the wins and losses, and their teams, and how I did pretty much throughout the entire tournament. So in round 1, I played Eric Bartlett, who had a Salamence, a Tapu Bulu, Metagross, Tapu Koko, a Neolego, and a Gastrodon. I did pretty well in this. All of his sets were pretty standard. He had Toxic on the Gastrodon, and I won both of those games. So nothing really special in that. I did fairly well, I believe, in that, and I can't really recall anything from that game that I really want to touch on in this team report. Now, in the second round, I was paired with Joshua Lorcy, and if you don't know who Joshua Lorcy is, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below for his Twitter. He is an incredibly good VGC player. He had actually cut this regional tournament, and I was talking to him, I was like, dude, you look so tired. He drove up from New York at 3 a.m. to get to this regional, and it's like, damn. And he did very well. He went 7-1 in this, which gave me really good resistance. I had really good resistance throughout the entire tournament because of majority of the players that I had played did very, very well, and they're all very good players. And I think they all had positive records, which is pretty good. But I'm starting to get off track. Joshua Lorcy had a team of Alolan Ninetales, a Marowak, a Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini, a Celesteela, and a Crocodile. So basically, like a mashed together between Ryota's team and Sam Pendelis' team from the Pokemon World Championships in 2017. The Ninetales, the Tapu Koko to Tapu Fini, basically, not the Fini, but that's what Sam Pendelis had, and the Tapu Koko, the Celesteela, the Crocodile, in which Ryota had. So he did really good. This team really worked out for him. I lost both of those games. Both of those games came down to about 5 minutes in the timer. They were extremely long games. There were some people who had actually played 3 games in the span of me and Joshua playing just 2 games. I played him incredibly well. He is just such a good player that I couldn't overcome his stamina in those matches, because there were certain turns in which I was, missing moves, or, I was getting crit, I was starting to get tilted, and maybe I was like starting to affect my decision making in the matches. But I do want to say in game 1 though, I did set up in front of his Tapu Fini. I predicted his Protect from his Feeny. He did not Protect. He Moonblasted into my Garchomp. My Garchomp's very, very bulky. It had about 25% health left. I set up a Swords Dance, and in the following turn, I had a clear as day Groundium Z into his Tapu Fini, which would have definitely KO'd it. I had my Arcanine on the field. I could have KO'd his Celesteela as well. So what I did was I Flare Blitzed into the Celesteela, and I Poison Jabbed into the Tapu Fini because I didn't want to waste my Groundium Z so that I can save it for something that was potentially in the back, such as the Crocodile, which he very well could have had. And I felt that I needed to save the Groundium Z. What had happened, I missed my Poison Jab on the Tapu Fini. The Tapu Fini had then Moonblasted at my Garchomp, KO'd it, and my Arcanine was KO'd itself to Flare Blitz onto the Celesteela, and I ended up losing that match, which I felt like I should have won, but, you know, unfortunate that I did miss that. And then the second game, Joshua just outplayed me at every corner, so I couldn't really do anything about that, barring the fact that it was a very, very long match as well. I asked him why he didn't protect the Tapu Fini in the game 1 and in game 2, in which I actually set up Swords Dance in front of him again, because I had a clear as day Groundium Z into the Tapu Fini. And he said, you never want to let Garchomp set up a Swords Dance because your opponent's going to think that, okay, I'm going to lose my Fini, and I should protect it. So if I don't protect it, I'm going to lose it. But people set up Swords Dances, and you can't let them set Swords Dances up into Garchomp because they could just sweep through your entire team. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that's a really good way to think about it, because the majority of the Garchomps, if not all of them, have Swords Dance. So that is the decision-making and the thought process of an incredibly good VGC player. And, I was very thankful for that information after the game, because it'll probably affect the way that I play later in this tournament, as well as in future. Round 3 against Morahas, which is actually a friend of mine around the northeastern area. We basically go to the same tournaments. We've gone to tournaments together before. She had a team of Metagross, Mimikyu, Tapu Koko, Salamence, Garchomp, and the Snorlax, and it was the Bulldoze set on the Salamence with the weakness policy Metagross, and I was interested to see the Salamence and the Garchomp, considering the fact that they don't fill the same roles, because a Salamances typically carry a Dragon type attack for the Garchomps, and the Garchomps are typically more bulky, so the Salamances can then outspeed it. And Garchomps really don't carry a Dragon-type move, so that's probably why she had brought it. I didn't really ask her, but I just find that interesting to see two Dragon-types on the same team. You don't really see that too often. I did win both of my matches against her. I do want to say that I did get lucky the one match, and I can't remember which one it was in, and I got 2 crits on her, which basically had ended the game right there and then. So I do want to say that, but it was a great match. The Mimikyu was carrying the Farium Z. Game 1, I did lead the Taboo Lele and the Mandibuzz. I did that in a lot of games, a lot of game 1s, just to basically scout out what they would lead against it. And then I kind of compensated that if I did lose that game in game 2 and 3, in which you are going to see later on in Paul Chua's match. But the Mimikyu did have Farium Z. She had led Mimikyu and Snorlax. So I was thinking that she would definitely set up the Trick Room and the Belly Drum, so I had taunted with my Mandibuzz. Well, my Mandibuzz couldn't even reveal taunt because she had Varium Z'd my Mandibuzz, which O-coded it, and that happened 3 times throughout the tournament. So there's a lot of people bringing the Varium Z Mimikyus, probably for the Mandibuzzes. But I ended up winning that 2-0, and we're going to hop into our next round, which is round 4 against Zoe Rosenbaum, which I had won both of those games. I did actually record my last game against her, and I'll leave that in the description down below as well. I wanted to record majority of my matches, or at least the game 3s or the game 2s, after the rounds. I didn't really have enough time because a lot of these rounds went like almost maximum time, and I didn't have enough time in between the rounds and the pairings to record them, and I really only could do it with my phone, so the quality of the videos really aren't that good. But I did end up recording the last game. That last game 2 against Zoe Rosenthal, I did basically just sweep through her team with Garchomp, because the previous game before I brought Garchomp in the latter end of the game, and all I did was Earthquake, basically just bluffing the fact that I was Scarfed, because I was outspeeding everything, because obviously she has a slower team, and the Mimikyu was slower, and in Game 2 she had a Tapu Fini, and I believe a Mimikyu on the field, and all I did was... No, she had a Mimikyu and something else on the field. Might have been a Mach. All I did was Earthquake. She switched into Tapu Fini. I got Chip on the Tapu Fini. I wanted to take out the Mimikyu's substitute its ability, and the Celesteela heavy slammed her Mimikyu so that she couldn't set up the Trick Room, and then the next turn she probably felt safe enough that she didn't have to protect her with the Tapu Fini, considering the fact that the Earthquake wouldn't have knocked out, and then I ground EMZ'd her, and then I ended up basically swept from that point on, because nothing else could hit my Garchomp other than the Tapu Fini. I was very Tapu Fini weak, and I seen that throughout this entire tournament because I didn't have much practice with this team at all. Anyway, round 5 was against Paul Chua, and Paul Chua is another player from my area. He goes to all the PCs, mid-season showdowns that I go to. Really, really good guy. We were helping him with physics problems. Well, I wasn't helping him. Andrew was helping him. I actually teach physics, but I don't teach the type of physics that he's learning right now in college. But it is funny, and he's a really great guy. Such a good Pokemon player, multiple regional champion. He had a team of Arcanine, Celesteela, the Garchomp, the Koko, the Mimikyu, and the Snorlax. And again, this Mimikyu had Fairy MZ on it. I led the Lele, and I led the Mandibuzz game 1, and he Fairy MZ'd into my Mandibuzz, which O-coded it, and I'm like, alright, I really gotta adjust myself for these Mimikyu, so I did lead accordingly in Game 1 and Game 2. Game 3 and Game 2, and in Game 3, and again, the video is down in the description below, went until time, and then we had 3 turns after our final turn of time, and during that time, my Celesteela was 1v2ing his Celesteela and Arcanine. He had seeded his own Arcanine, so I couldn't seed the Arcanine. I saved my Arcanine to intimidate his Celesteela and Arcanine 2 times at the end of the game. I basically sacrificed my Arcanine and the Snorlax, because I felt that the only way I could have won that game is my Celesteela, and I did end up winning that game because the Arcanine ended up falling to Leech Seed from his own Celesteela. He was attempting to snarl my Celesteela, but I kept on protecting the snarl away, because he would snarl, protect, snarl, protect, snarl, protect, because I wanted to be able to get rid of him, potentially get his a Beast Boost, special defense, so his Celesteela couldn't take me out, or at least damage me with a Flamethrower, because it was going down time, but he didn't have Flamethrower. Once the Arcanine went down, his Celesteela attempted to go for a double protect. I got a Flamethrower last turn in time onto Celesteela, which took him down to about half, and I think I had 75% health left, and I ended up beating him on percentage. So that was an insane game, and that was one of the longest matches I have ever played. Round 6 was against Jake Skirchik. Again, Jake goes to the Northeastern game, Premier Challenges and Mid-Season Showdowns. I had actually played him 2 times at the Premier Challenge 2 weeks ago, which I finished top 4 at. He's such a good player, and it's funny that we had matched up against each other again in this, because we only played each other about 2 weeks ago. I had his number 2 weeks ago. He had my number this time. He had a team of Tapu Fini, the Mudsdale, Koko, Arcanine, the Porygon 2, and the Kartana. His Tapu Fini, and again, I am extremely Tapu Fini weak. He definitely brought his Tapu Fini against me. Now, his Tapu Fini was a little bit faster, unfortunately, because he was able to get up the light screen before I can actually taunt the Tapu Fini with my Mandibuzz. And I had Calm Minded a couple of times. It really didn't matter. He basically swept me from that point on. I couldn't really do much damage to him. Took out my Taboo Lele, took out my Mandibuzz, and the Garchomp in the back. He ended up bringing his Porygon to absorb hits, the Ground MZ. He could Ice Beam it. Just a very, very good player and a very, very good team composition. I think every single game that we had played between the two games, he brought the Tapu Fini, he brought the Coco, he brought the Porygon 2, and he brought the Arcanine. Round 7 against Ian Lutz, and I was talking to Ian before we had played. He hasn't competed in about a year. Pretty much same as me. I really haven't competed in about a year. And he had a pretty cool team. He had a Woodarium Z, Salamence, and a Z move based off of Nature's Madness. I think it's Tapuinum Z. I don't even know how to say it. On the Tapu Koko, it's the move that it's the Z move basically that takes away 75% of your health. And when I led Tapu Lele and Mandibuzz, he did the Z Nature's Madness on my on my Mandibuzz, and then he followed up with a partner Pokemon and ended up knocking it out, and I couldn't get up my Tailwind, but I ended up using the other Pokemon in the back to compensate for that. I did Calm Mind turn 1 while Tailwinding up with my Tapu Lele, which definitely helped, and that helped me sweep a little later on. It did have his Metagross, but he couldn't Bullet Punch, and I took the Metagross out with the Garchomp. So Garchomp, really, really good in this entire tournament. It definitely was the right call. The last round, which was the most disheartening round, and which was the round that I didn't play the best in whatsoever, but I had a pretty bad matchup against Nick Safranek. Really, really great guy. I was happy I was able to meet majority of the people there. We were having fun at the end there because I knew I had lost against him because in the game one, I do want to say that I don't want to say that I feel like I should have won, but I definitely would have had a very, very good chance of winning because my Garchomp Ground EMZ'd his Tapu Fini, which actually brought it down to 2 HP. But on the previous turn, I had missed a Leech Seed onto his Tapu Fini from my Celesteela, and if that would have actually hit, I would have had the Leech Seed chip, and with the Leech Seed chip, I would have knocked out the Tapu Fini. The Tapu Fini would have not knocked out my Garchomp with Moonblast, and I would have had a Garchomp for his Circuitry in the back, which actually revealed Hidden Power Ice in the second game, which OHKO'd my Garchomp. But I would have at least had a fighting chance in game 1 because I did have the Arcanine in the back, which could take any hit the Circuitry could throw at me. In game 2, he had Endeavor on his Whimsicott, so I was like, oh, I'm going to bring Snorlax to this game. He really can't do much to it. It can absorb a lot of hits, and then I could just sweep with Facade after a Belly Drum. His Whimsicott had Endeavor. I brought it down the Sash. He Endeavored my Snorlax, and he took it out with the Circuitry. And then the following turn, he Electrium Z'd my Lele with his Circuitry, and he basically 4-0'd me in the second game. So that was a disheartening loss, because if I had actually won that last round after absolutely playing out of my mind the entire tournament, I would have finished 9th overall, or somewhere around that area. I've gotten $250, and just having a record of 6-2, which that would have made me much happier, and I've gotten 10 more points. Now, the 10 points really doesn't make that big of a difference, because I do have 60 points overall out of 400 for this year for the World Championships. But I would have had 70, I'm just saying. But all of these opponents were really, really great. I wish I could have recorded all of the games, but since it's a tethered event, I cannot do that. I do want to thank everyone that I did play. I gained a lot of good information, especially from Nick Safranek, because a max speed, timid, Circuitry's Hidden Power can OHKO my Garchomp, which I felt like it shouldn't, because number one, it's not stab, it has a low base power. Although Circuitry's special attack is absolutely ridiculous, but I have an incredibly bulky Garchomp, especially on the special side. So that's something that I can definitely EV for in the future. So, I mean, gaining Celtic is definitely a good way of looking at that loss. Anyway, so what could I have done better? I finished this tournament with 9 wins and 7 losses. If you want to count the one draw that I had against Paul Chua, I would have been 10-7. I wish I had more time to practice with this team. Unfortunately, I had put the team together the night before the tournament. I didn't have a lot of time to practice because I'm so busy with work and with other things going on in life. But the Premier Challenge 2 weeks ago, this regional tournament, really pumping me up to start practicing, making videos on VGC content so I can practice more that way as well as making content at the same time. I need to practice more. I need to optimize my EV spreads, and the more I practice will allow me to make better decisions in the future. Because if I can go 5-3, potentially 6-2 in a tournament without any practice or playing this game for a long period of time, if I practice, I feel like that I could do a lot better and potentially top cut a tournament, which is definitely one of my goals in the future. So my overall experience with this tournament and going to Connecticut to Hartford, it was a great time. I get to spend time with my friends. You see them right there. I had no idea I took that picture. On the left-hand side right there, we're walking to the convention hall early in the morning on Saturday to go to the regional tournament. And you can see that there is a line on the right-hand side there spanning around the entire building. There's over 1,000 competitors. Of course, there were 700 and some for TCG and 222 for the Masters division for VGC. But overall, there was close to 1,000 players, if not over 1,000 players. It was insane, the amount of people that go to these tournaments. And you see on their left-hand side there, it was a great venue, great setup. It was a nice convention hall. They set up a nice little area where you can actually watch the streamed matches. And shout out to Alberto Lara, who had actually won the entire regional championship. He had played Brady Smith in the final, and Alberto Lara won with a Gengar. I was about to say Garchomp, but he won with a Gengar, which is absolutely insane. When I seen that in the finals, I was like, you have to be freaking kidding me. Because I didn't end up watching this until I finished the one round in the PC, because I was playing the Premier Challenge the day after the regional championship, which unfortunately I went 3-3, and I should have won my last damn round, but can't really do anything about that. So my plans for the future, I want to top cut a regional. I keep saying to myself, well, if I'm going to, 5 or 6 regionals and I get in the top 32 or top 64, I could still qualify for Worlds. And, the elitists in the community out there are like, well, he doesn't deserve to go to Worlds because, he didn't do very well at regional championships. And you should be doing well at regional championships in order to get your Worlds invite. I don't like that mentality. I don't like that outlook. I like playing the game. I should be able to go to Worlds if I put in a lot of work. And going to multiple regional championships is putting in a lot of work, in my opinion. But I do want to top cut a regional championship. I'm going to be going to at least 5 more regional championships. I have my hotels booked. I have my flights booked for the ones that I am flying to that are further away. And then I'll be driving to the other ones that are a little closer by, especially in Virginia. Mid-season showdowns and PCs in my area are usually... there's 1 PC or 2 PCs every single month that I'm going to be going to, and there's a mid-season showdown almost like every other month that I'll be going to as well. PCs are really lackluster this year because they only give you 15 points, but at least the mid-season showdowns give you at least 50 points if you do place first. U.S. internationals, it's something that I'm not even thinking about at the moment because I'm like, okay, if I can go to all these regionals, potentially do well, I can make it to Worlds, but I'm also going to be doing internationals, which is even a bigger venue. We should have people from other countries coming, so I'm really looking forward to going to that. And then definitely Worlds in 2018. That is my main goal. And I'm really looking forward to that because it's in Nashville, Tennessee. And my buddy lives in Tennessee, so I'd be able to visit him. And Nashville is just a crazy party city. So I'd really like to go there. And they house one of my favorite hockey teams, although the tournament is going to be held in August, and it's not hockey season. But I love the Nashville Predators. So anyway, that is pretty much it. So thank you everyone that's watching this, and I know that I didn't really have good commentary in this entire team report, so take it easy on me. I haven't made a video or a professional video, none of them are really professional, in about a year or even more than that, and I haven't really played the game much in about a year, so I plan on making more of these videos and probably going to make a team report for every regional that I go to, depending on how well I do, of course. And I'm going to be making hopefully more videos in VGC. So hope you liked my team, hope you liked my team report. Feel free to use it if you want specific EV spreads. Just PM me or just hit me up. Thanks guys. Peace.